channel. In today's video, I'm going to share how I remove keikis from some of my orchids. I have a couple of orchids right now that have pushed out keikis. Keikis are little babies that appear in different orchids. Sometimes they appear at the base of the plant, or with Dendrobiums, they appear on the canes. With Phalaenopsis, they appear on the spike or at the base. I'm going to share a couple of orchids that I have right now that have a bunch of keikis. I'm going to share how I will be removing those keikis. So let's just jump right in. I'll show you what I have with keikis right now, and I will show you how I will be removing them off the plants. And I just want to thank you guys for your comments on my last video and ideas on videos to make. So I will be making a video next on how my Vandas are doing, the ones in semi-hydro, and I will be doing repot videos coming up in the next couple of weeks as well. If you have any ideas for comments, please drop it down below, and let's just jump right in. Alrighty guys, so I'm going to show you some of the orchids that I have right now with keikis on them, and some that I'll remove and some that I will keep. This first one is the Phalaenopsis G House Pink Girl, and it's got a little keiki growing. It's in bloom. The blooms are super cute. I love this one. Really easy to grow. But it grew a little keiki on me on one of the old spikes. So this is one. So a keiki is basically a little baby that grows. Sometimes they grow from the base of the Phalaenopsis orchid, and sometimes they come out of the spike, which is nice. And this will be a little baby plant that will be exactly like the mother plant. So this is a little keiki over here. And I'm actually excited to see this one because I like this orchid and I'd love to share it with someone. But look at those blooms, they're just gorgeous. They have a light fragrance, and I just find it super cute. I've had this orchid for like 2 years. I definitely have to upgrade the pot. It's in this little tiny pot. I should have given it a couple inches, well, maybe another inch more. But so far it's growing really well. But in the spring, I will put it in a 4-inch pot where I think it'll grow even better. All right, so I have to change the angle for this next one. This one's the Phalaenopsis tetraspis C1. I'm really excited about this one because this one's kind of a more pricey orchid. It's pushing out a bunch of keikis. It was actually blooming as well, but it is full of keikis right now. I should have also repotted this orchid. It's growing just fine. Bottom leaf is shutting, which is fine. But I have to water it quite frequently because this moss over here is very tightly packed, so that means it dries pretty quickly. But otherwise, it's growing fine. I will repot this in the spring, but I think I will remove this large keiki over here. And we have a couple of others that are growing. The roots aren't quite big yet, so I'm going to leave them there for a little while. But let me show you one more orchid that I have that we will be working with today. All right, this is one of my favorites. This one's the Dendrobium Angel Baby Little Darling. I highlight this one all the time. It gets keikis all the time. I'm not going to remove all of them. Clearly there's some that are still really small, but we have some keikis that are even blooming on this. Now, it doesn't look really impressive right now because it's not in bloom, but I can assure you that this orchid is just beautiful. When it blooms, it's just a show. It's like completely full of flowers. They smell like gardenia. Some of them are faded, so unfortunately they're done, but we still have a couple of blooms here. I've given keikis of this orchid to several friends, and theirs have bloomed already, so it's very vigorous. And when I received it, it was just like the middle part, which was small. So now I'm noticing that the outside of the plant is growing bigger than the inside. So when I repot this, maybe this spring, we'll see if I can get away with a little more time there. I'll probably divide it so that the larger pieces go into a separate pot or something like that. But the middle part was the original part of the plant, and now that it's maturing, it's getting a little bit bigger. With that said, this orchid is not it looks like a nobile type orchid, but it doesn't require the rest that a nobile orchid has. So you give it water year round, it blooms. It's really easy. I got this at White Plains Orchids 2 years ago, so it's doing really well. I love the blooms. It did have a thrips infestation last year, so I wanted to give keikis away, but I didn't because it was just covered in a thrips infestation. You could see a little damage here and there, but just given that the leaves do shed on this one, you don't see too much, so we will look at that one as well. So let's get started. So let's go ahead and get started with the Dendrobium Angel Baby Little Darling. So we have a couple of keikis that I think are ready to go. So this one over here looks big enough. I'm just gonna pull it and twirl it, and then we're gonna take it right off. So we have a piece right over here. What I like to do is, let me see if I could focus. There we go. We have some roots. We could throw that into moss. So what I like to do is I take it right out. Sometimes it comes from the point where it blooms, but you see these little keikis over here, they're still too small. So we're gonna leave those in there. And sometimes that happens if you over fertilize, or if you give fertilize when it's supposed to, in the winter when it's gonna take a break. Sometimes it does happen. This does make keikis and blooms at the same time. I did not give it fertilizer. But if you want to avoid it for similar cane nobly types, you just want to pull back on the fertilizer in the winter. Let's take a look at a couple of other keikis on this. So here's another good one. So I like to make sure that the cane is a couple of inches long on Dendrobiums and that there's decent roots. This one had a small root system, but it was bigger. And I know that this orchid is vigorous, so this should be fine. But this one's even better. So what I'm going to do is the same thing. I'm just going to kind of pull it, but be careful with the roots. You don't want to break the roots. We might get a casualty or two. Yeah, we left some of the roots there. Oh, I made a mistake there, but this should be okay to keep this going. I'm going to put it right into some sphagnum moss. Okay, here's a couple more. This one's a little unruly, right? It's got just so much going on. So I'm just gonna pull that out. Let's take this one here. The roots are on the inside. Let's see if we get all of the roots in there. You could cut it as well. I like to just kind of tug it. Let's see. This will come out neatly. Oh, it looks like the roots attached to the cane. Okay, this wasn't great. I probably will not use this one, but the roots attached to the cane there. There's a little keiki underneath here. We're gonna leave that. There's another one over here that we could take. There, you see, like I should have done this a little sooner. I let these roots get kind of long and they've attached themselves to the cane, which makes it difficult to remove, but we're gonna try one more. There we go. So we have that, that's good enough. We're gonna leave these little ones, and then in the spring, once these are bigger, I will take them off, and then I'll be able to have lots of keikis to give away to friends. But isn't she beautiful? Alrighty, let's move on to the next one. All right, moving on to Jihao's Pink Girl. For this one, I find this keiki to be much too small. So I think I'm gonna leave this keiki on. It's gorgeous, but it's just so tiny. The roots are getting long, but I'm gonna give it maybe 2 more weeks before I remove it, just because the leaves are so small. If it pushes through another leaf, then I think I will remove it, but I just think it's too small. It might not survive for me, so I'm just gonna give it a couple weeks. With that said, my conditions are very dry in the winter, so I need to make sure that I mist this quite often. So if you're in an indoor environment, these roots are very important. You don't want them to shrivel up. This is a little dry, so I'm gonna spray it. And every morning I'm gonna mist this. And I wanna make sure that I keep the humidity level high so that this doesn't dry out or die on me. But I'm gonna skip this one, give it a couple weeks, maybe let it get another leaf, but I just find this to be too small to remove. We will move on to the next Phalaenopsis orchid that is ready to have some keikis removed. So this orchid is a beast. I mean, it's a beast in a tiny container though, in a tiny pot, but it is pushing out lots of keikis. Now some of these keikis are too small, so I'm gonna leave them on there. You see how this root is so tiny, the leaves are small, but this one has nice sized leaves. So this one is definitely ready. The roots are on the smaller side though, but I think this one will be fine to come off. I'm gonna leave the others for now, give them a little more time to mature, but I feel better about this one versus the other one because the leaves are much bigger, despite the small roots. But I think if I put it in moss, it'll grow just fine. So what I'm gonna do with this orchid over here is I'm gonna take it by the base where the roots are, and I'm gonna hold the spike, and I'm going to twist it off very carefully. You see how it has more roots coming in here? Let me see if I could zoom in for you guys. You see how there's more roots there? This is perfect, so it's gonna grow nice. So we're gonna twist it, and then a little piece of the stem remained, which is okay. And now we have the keiki. So we were able to just take that right off. So I'm gonna put this in moss and it'll grow nicely. This is a nice orchid too. The blooms are beautiful. It's got like every single flower is different, so it's perfect. I really like this one. So we did break a little piece of this stem. So as you guys know, this is a summer blooming Phalaenopsis orchid. It's a sequential bloomer. So typically on the spike, it tends to flower multiple times. So we want to avoid cutting these spikes, but to remove the keiki, that's okay. It was just a little small cut where the little node was. That's fine. New spikes will come in. We're gonna leave the others for now. Let me zoom out. We're gonna leave these a little while longer, and then we will put them in moss maybe in another month or so when they get a little bigger. But that is the Phalaenopsis tetraspis C1. So these are my keikis. I'm gonna go ahead and pot these up in some sphagnum moss. And when I water them, I'm gonna make sure that the mix is fluffy first, but when I water, I wanna make sure that it stays nice and moist, not soggy, but moist, and it should give a good environment for these orchids to grow a nice root system and generally thrive. So what you can do is you could pot them up individually, but what I like to do to save materials is if I have a lot of keikis, I pot them in a community pot. So I just take these all together, put them in moss, and then when the root system is bigger and they've grown, then I'll separate it out and then pot them separately. It's a way that you could save on materials. But that is pretty much it. I just wanted you guys to see how I remove keikis, and I hope this was helpful. Alrighty guys, so I potted these up into sphagnum moss, and I'm gonna keep them moist. I'll let them like barely dry out, but keep them nice and moist so that the new roots can adapt. I don't want it to get bone dry and also not too soggy. So I made the mix a little fluffy, but they're all set. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for more orchid content. Thank you all for the comments below, like I said, on ideas and videos to make. I kind of haven't been making content for long, so I'm kind of just trying to find ideas on what to make for you guys. So the Vanda video will be next, and I will catch you guys in the next video. See you guys soon. Bye.